Vince Neil, the lead singer of Motley Crue, has received a considerable amount of criticism throughout his career, with some of his fellow rockers going as far as calling him a terrible vocalist, washed up and overweight. Specifically, Guns N' Roses band members have expressed their dislike for him. In this video, we'll be taking a look at why rockers can't stand Motley Crue's Vince Neil. The legendary feud between Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose and Motley Crue lead singer Vince Neil began at the 1989 MTV Music Video Awards. During the event, Neil allegedly punched GNR rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin, who he accused of hitting his pregnant wife at a club in Los Angeles. Axl Rose came to Stradlin's defense, leading to a heated altercation between him and Neil. Neil bragged about breaking Stradlin's nose in a Kerrang magazine interview, prompting Rose to demand a public apology and threatening physical violence. Neil challenged Rose to a fight in an arena, but the hype eventually died down and the two never actually faced off. In 2019, rumors circulated that Motley Crue and Def Leppard were offered $150 million by Live Nation for a comeback tour, but with the conditions that Vince Neil lose 40 pounds and go to rehab. However, Neil insisted that Tommy Lee was the one who needed to go to rehab, causing tension between the two. Just before the stadium tour kicked off in 2022, it was reported that a fight broke out between Neil and Lee during the final rehearsal, with Lee body-shaming Neil and Neil eventually tackling him onto his drum kit and causing Lee to break 4 ribs. In 1994, a feud erupted between Lars Ulrich of Metallica and Motley Crue when Ulrich exposed the crew for lip-syncing to a backing track during a performance at the American Music Awards. This led to Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx calling Ulrich a sweet fat balding Lars in an open letter. The feud resurfaced in 2015 when Tommy Lee roasted Ulrich on Twitter, and a Portland radio host agitated Vince Neil by asking for his side of the Metallica beef. Neil attempted to keep it classy and offered no comment, but hung up on the DJ shortly after. In 2010, Vince Neil criticized Sharon Osbourne in his autobiography. He called her the most evil woman I've ever met, prompting Osbourne to claim she hadn't spoken to him in nearly 30 years. Osbourne cited Neil's 1984 car crash, which killed Hanoi Rock's drummer, and accused him of causing more harm on the road since then. Shortly after the book's release, Neil was arrested for drunk driving in Las Vegas, allegedly after smashing a fan's camera. Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil and English singer Boy George had a heated argument during a challenge on the reality show Celebrity Apprentice. George, a recovering alcoholic, was upset that Neil was drinking wine in the studio, while Neil fired back, saying that he was way over 21 and that George couldn't put his sobriety on everyone else. The argument nearly resulted in a physical fight before the show's production crew intervened. Co-star and MMA fighter Chael Sonnen later revealed that the confrontation was real, and producers had to turn off the microphones and shut down the cameras to prevent a physical altercation. In a recent 2022 interview, Hanoi Rock's guitarist Andy McCoy shared that he never received an apology from Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil for the 1984 car crash that resulted in the death of Hanoi Rock's drummer Nicholas Razzle Dingley. McCoy expressed frustration, stating that Neil always runs away from him whenever they cross paths. McCoy also took a shot at Motley Crue, calling them rip-offs and mocking their 25th goodbye tour. The incident is a reminder of the tragedy that occurred when Hanoi Rocks came to Los Angeles for their first ever California shows and decided to party at Neil's house. Neil and Razzle ended up getting into a car accident while intoxicated, which resulted in Razzle's untimely death. In 1992, tensions between Vince Neil and the rest of Motley Crue arose while working on their next album. A meeting was held on February 10th, resulting in Neil's dismissal from the band. The band stated that Neil quit to pursue car racing, but Neil claimed he was fired due to disagreements over the band's direction. Motley Crue continued with new singer John Karobi, but later rehired Neil to fulfill a contract. However, the band's internal issues persisted, with Nikki Sixx revealing in 2015 that they were not close friends off stage.